The story is begin from here. When Amina saw a lot of soldiers everywhere with swords and hammers, she shouted and got worried and said, "Rise up! Revolt! Rise up! Revolt! Fa's Pearl Palace, the time has finally come. We will be slaves no longer. Don't let a single wizard in this palace get away. Is anybody here?" she thought while looking towards a tunnel. "I don't see anyone. Has everyone already fled? Where is everyone?" Jibril. Amina looked towards the door and, feeling helpless, thought, "Rise up! Revolt! Rise up! Revolt! You wizard bastards! You see us only as resources? We are not your tools. Once that gate breaks, am I going to die? I can't believe I'm going to die. I'm too young. I only just had my coming of age ceremony. I can't die like this. It isn't fair." Eventually, she started walking away and she thought, are they going to keep going? As soon as she reached a magical city Faz, she angrily thought about her history. What did we ever do to them? The magical city of Faz. The history of Faz began with magic. It is said that long ago, a messenger descended from the sky, gifting a star with mysterious powers. Those born from that power were called wizards. When some people gathered and came in front of Visit explained his point to them, and Amina thought after seeing this whole incident that naturally, the wizards ruled over the people of Faz. It was seen as the most logical and ideal way of life. For the past century, however, the number of wizards being born has been dwindling. They passed away as time went by, and now only about 30 of us remain. It has been 20 years since the last 2 wizards were born. I am one of the last children of the wizards. She thought, I wonder how many are still alive. Mina, a wizard, looked at Amina and thought and said, "Amina!" Tamina said to him, "Here you are." "How are the others?" The wizard asked her, "Where have you been?" Amina angrily said to him, "Defending the Western Gallery. That was my spot in the security protocol. What on earth is going on? It's chaos at the front gate. I came here after everything fell apart." He thought the protocol is no use. He became sad and said to her, "We can't do any grand-scale magic with what wizards remain anyway. It takes 6 wizards to put up a single wall. How can we protect the entire palace?" She silently glanced at him and said, "But still," the wizard thought and said to her, "You were protecting the west side, so you might not know. The front gate is under siege, but they actually came in through the east. Those thugs will be here soon enough. Go north. Get to the altar of the star." He put his hand on his mouth and said to her, "The chairwoman is there." The wizard also thought and said to her when she looked toward him, "Hurry, get going. We're running out of time." Amina got upset and said, "All right, where is Jibril?" He said to her, "I saw him in the east hall, but after that, I couldn't say." "The east," Amina replied, "Thank you." He looked at her as a child and thought the wizards of Faz are practically family. Soon after a child with magical ability is born, they are brought to the palace to be raised alongside other wizards. Just the thought of my family falling before those rebels enrages me. Amina was sitting on the chair and thought especially Jibril. She also thought that Jibril is like an older brother to me. He's only 2 or 3 years older but is much more mature. He thought that Amina? But when the revolt broke out, he was nowhere to be seen. Amina ran away from there and while running, she thought he'd better not be hurt. What's the use of all those brains at a time like this? She reached and thought the altar of the star, Amina said while seeing her chairwoman. Amina surprised and said to her, "Are you all right? Those rebels will be here soon. Let's get out of here," and the chairwoman replied and said, "Amina? The chairwoman thought you built this, didn't you?" Amina looked at the magic ball and thought and said, "Yes, you gave me the task. A magic arc that can fly long distances. This is just an experimental one, though." The chairwoman said to her, "Yes, you are the right one for the job. Everyone said Jibril was a genius, but I've always thought you were better at writing magic formulas." She also said to her, "Your focus was the sharpest of anyone's. Jibril always came first, but I wish I had paid you more attention." Amina asked her, "You can after this is all over?" She grabbed her hand and thought, "Let's get out of here first." They were looking at some wizards together, and thought somehow wizards had swords and hammers in their hands. Amina shouted and thought, "Are the last of the wizards here?" "You're responsible for this, Chairwoman Ridwin." Wizard shouted and, attacking, said there are 5 rebels. The rest of them must be busy searching elsewhere. Amina, taking the magic ball, thought this is all I've got, but there's hope if it's just these few. Amina, taking the magic ball in her hands, loudly said, "Get back. How dare you come in here?" The wizard said in loud voices, "What are you waiting for? Grab her now." As she threw the magic ball, only 2 wizards dropped, and she thought, "Art, stand your ground. There's only 2 of them." Amina turned and said to her, "Back off." "Chairwoman," as one wizard grabbed her, she said, "Chairwoman, do something." The wizard caught her by her hair, and she said, "Let go." Amina fell down, and she thought, "Ouch, my head, no, my conduit," she said to her chairwoman Ridwan. "The wizard's time has come to an end." The wizards took his sword toward the chairwoman, and thought, "This city will no longer abide by your rules." She thought and said, "But before you die, you must explain yourself and take full responsibility." The chairwoman shouted and said, "Hurry, damn it." A magic stick hit the chairwoman, and she became angry. Amina looked at her, and she thought, "Now it feels real." She also thought while she was looking at her, "Everyone I love is going to die. And so am I." Amina said, "It's all on your hands," she shouted, and thought, "It's all because of you. Everyone's dead because of you." The wizard said, "Keep your mouth shut. Hey, if the chairwoman's dead, that hag was useless till the end. Go alert the captain." Amina became angry and shouted and thought, "What did we do? What did we do to deserve this?" The wizards took her, and Amina fell on the ground, and he said to her, "Stay still." She tried to take the magic ball and thought, "Can't reach." The wizard said to her, "Let's join the others for now. She might be young, but she's still a wizard. She needs to talk before we get rid of her." Amina thought, "You fools. You think you can take me? I don't want to die. I want to live." She surprised and said, "Huh?" Suddenly she looked and saw they fell down, and she thought, "What happened? Is this magic?" She turned and saw Jibril. She reached and thought, "Jibril." Amina shouted and bent from outside the window and said, "Di Jibril." Amina also towards Di Jibril and said, "What happened? Where are the others?" She said, "The chairwoman." He said her. Amina. Di Jibril said her, "I'll only say this once, so listen carefully. The intruders have almost finished searching. They're gathering together now." She thought, "This is the only place left for us wizards to hide." Di Jibril thought then, "Yes. They are all dead." The chairwoman thought, in anger, "Condition dead." Amina said her, "What are you doing?" Di Jibril picked her and said her, "There's no time." She shouted and tried to remove her hand from him. Amina looked at him and said, "Wait, we're escaping in this? But it still isn't finished." Di Jibril said her, "You finished the basic navigation design. With my magic, it can make it that far at least. But carrying 2 people." Di Jibril said, "No." Di Jibril looked her and said, "The only one escaping is you." She shocked and looked, said, "What?" Di Jibril shouted and said, "What are you saying? What's the point in that?" "There is a point." Di Jibril loudly said her, "This was bound to happen one day. We're paying for our misdeeds." Di Jibril also said her, for irresponsibly refusing to compromise, even as our numbers dwindled. Amina surprised and said, "Di Jibril." Di Jibril glanced and said, "But you're the youngest. You only ever did what you were told. So I want to help you avoid being held accountable." Amina said her, "You're not that much older. Come with me. It might work if we combine our power." Amina happily said, "Di Jibril." She picked his hand when she was in the boat. She thought, "I'll be fine." Idiot! Di Jibril thought, a wizard without a medium to channel his magic is no different from an ordinary person. Amina thought that by handing over his magic conduit, he's giving up everything. Di Jibril thought, "Survive, Amina." Di Jibril looking surprised and said, "You're getting out of here. Go see the wider world. And don't forget to love." Amina tears poured out from eyes and she thought, "That's all the brotherly advice I have." Amina thought, "What does Pro Palace look like now? I'm scared to look down." Everyone said they were so relieved when I was born. She also thought that they said my eyes were like gems. Amina continuously weeping and said, "I want to go back." She put her hand on her face and thought, "I want to go back." She thought, how could this happen? It was so peaceful until dinner. Everyone was laughing and making plans for tomorrow. They thought, if only I could turn back time. Then I could stop what happened today and save everyone. If only I could turn back time. If I could go back, she glanced them. She said, have I arrived? She take the light candle and place her feet down. She saw a tunnel and thought the mind's crystal cave. She enter in the cave and said, survive? See the wider world? How? How could I ever, alone? If only I could go back. Jibril said, you finished the basic navigation design. With my magic, it can make it that far at least. Amina glace outside the cave. Amina thought, I'll be fine. Why did Jibril give me this? There must be another reason besides my safety. She also thought, come to think of it, the magic I've been designing recently, long-distance navigation. I did all that research into interspatial leaps. Upon departure, the passenger's body is dispersed by magic, and then reconstructed upon arrival. What if I change the axis and variables in the formula? Amina takes the candle light and thought, would I be able to leap through time? I might be able to go back to the past. Amina said that right. This alone might not be enough, but this is the crystal cave. She thought, I can use these crystals as a medium, the 3 elements of magic. Magical power, formulas, mediums. The 3 elements of grand-scale magic. Great magical power, complex formulas, and lots of mediums. Amina seeing the candle light jar and thought it's possible. This lamp withstood the force of Jibril's magic. Jibril must have foreseen this when he sent me here. Jibril shouted and thought, survive, Amina! I will survive. I will survive by going back to the past. The chairwoman said. Everyone said Jibril was a genius. But I've always thought you were better at writing magic formulas. Amina thought the candle jar and thought, I can do this. I can go back. To make a long story short, I failed. Amina became very glad and thought that I was successful in dispersing my body. But the past was already gone. It was nowhere to be found. Amina looked at the sky and thought, I had forgotten. She takes her hand towards the sky and thought, no one can turn back time. She shocked and thought, ever. She worrying and thought, having lost my destination, I disappeared from this world, and my body's information, my soul, went into the lamp. Amina shocked and thought, are you there? Answer me if you are. She looked her hands and said, I'm back in my body. Someone woke me up. I guess I've gotten used to it now that it's happened twice. She takes her lamp and thought, the first time it happened, I was so confused. When Amina came and looked him while he takes her lamp, she shocked to see him. He looked at her and said, what? Amina thought, I swear I was just inside the lamp. I have my body back? She surprised and thought, what the? Are you, Amina? Looked the fairy and thought, the fairy of the lamp? Do I really look that dangerous to you? Amina said, what? She thought, sorry. She thought, Finally she took the lamp and shouted, why does the lamp look so old? Could it be? Fairy looked her and thought, what year is it now? As he said her sorry? It's Amina. Still thought that 80 years had passed. 80 years? I can't believe it. Does this mean I really made it to the future? What does it even matter? Izzard and Jibril and people were together. She became very upset. Amina looked child and thought, first I have to get rid of this kid. Kid gave her lamp and said her, all right. So what if I'm the fairy of the lamp? Please don't kill me. Let me go home. I just so happen to have the power to grant his wish. Amina pointed her finger and said him when Kid was sitting down, sure, I'll grant you your wish. I ended up with power that had been impossible when bound to a physical body. Amina thought that his hand was hurt. Come to think of it, Amina looked his and thought his hand must have been the external medium that summoned my body. Did I wake up because his hand touched the lamp? Amina also thought, when will I have to go back into it? I wonder. Amina looked outside the cave and thought, dang Kid. Whatever it was the kid told them. People started showing up the very next day and bothering me. 2 girls came and said Gah. She thought I was so annoyed that I kicked them all out. Because of that, my magic ran out, and my body began evaporating again. I had only used my power 3 times. And just like that, I returned to the lamp and slept for a long time. Amina closed her eyes and thought, now, who summoned me this time? They'd better not be annoying. Amina said, She looked a person and thought, a pile of clothes. No, is it a person? Amina shocked to see him and said, are you just going to sit there after bringing me out? That's not very polite. Amina takes the lamp and said, hello? Are you asleep? He take lamp and shouted. The lamp reacted to his blood. Amina thought, how annoying. Maybe I shouldn't grant his wishes. Amina touched him and said, I called out to you once though. I'd say that's polite enough. Amina said him excuse me. He removed his cloth and thought he is human, right? Amina pointed her finger and said lean. Amina said who are you? He picked her hands and said her are you in Kudutha's gang too? Amina said ouch. He said her what were you trying to do just now? Amina turned and said him you're one to talk. He looked and thought he's not sorry at all. So annoying. Amina said aren't you the one who summoned me? He said her summoned? He said her you asked if I was here, so I came out. You're seriously annoying, you know that? Amina said him finally realized this was all you, have you? He replied her right. I did ask if someone was there. He removed his cloth from face and said her there was a misunderstanding. I'm sorry. I woke up from my fuzzy state and thought you were an assassin. Amina said how could you possibly think I was an assassin? If an assassin comes across as suspicious right away, then he's not a very good one. He said her well I do apologize for acting so rashly towards you. Amina said him that it's fine. My arm doesn't hurt anymore, so I guess I forgive you. There's still something strange about him though. He asked from he said her do you live here? Amina looked him and said what? He said her there's a legend around here about a fairy that lives in a lamb. They say it can harm people, but that sometimes it grants wishes too. But I suppose it's just a fairy tale. She glanced him and thought there's no such thing as a fairy that can understand humans, so I should have known what is he talking about. He takes the lamp and thought I came across this and tried to talk to the fairy. You must have heard me instead. The legend of the lamp fairy. How on earth did the story get this big? And how much time has passed? He said her your clothes are quite exotic. What village are you from? You don't live in this cave, do you? Amina said him that's not really. He turned glanced and thought that I thought you might have made it here. He said when Amina was behind him at last you show yourself. Are you Kuduth, leader of the assassins? Kuduth replied correct. Kuduth take a sword and thought assassins shouldn't hold petty grudges. Assassins shouldn't hold petty grudges. This sacred land with your filthy feet. He thoughts that Lord Jackal, commander of the Faz army. This is where you shall die. Lord Jackal said him you fight my men and soiled this sacred land with your filthy feet. This is where you shall die. He asked him sacred land? Lord Jackal said him this land is sacred, no matter what the ignorant may say. Mere humans must not set foot in the land of the fairies. Lord Jackal also said when she was looking the legend states that this cave is where the fairy of the lamp sleeps. There is a prophecy that the fairy will soon descend pain and suffering. Therefore humans must not displease it. Amina said him that's complete nonsense. He asked him it's worse than they say. Though I've always thought your blind beliefs were odd. Just what makes you think this is your land? This land is under the jurisdiction of Faz. Fairy said him by taking his sword and yet you speak of limiting its access to the commander of the military? Fairy said that I, Jackal, commander of the Faz army, hereby charge you of the following crimes. He also said that treason by way of starting a criminal organization, trespassing and false claims of ownership of Faz lands, and the crime of sending assassins to fight the commander of the Faz army. Lord Jackal said that don't mourn only over the death of your men. Think also of the lives cut short by your own faction. He said him do you think we enjoy hitting people? He thought when lamp dropped down without demand, we would surely go out of business. Lord Jackal said that was my next question. Who hired you to hit me? He smiles and said you're quite a naive young man. He said him look here. Don't you realize that the empire fell long ago? There are plenty of people who seek to rule over Faz, but can't because of you. So I'd say there are more than just a few who'd have you dead. Amina looked him and thought that man is treating him like he's a child. Lord Jackal turned and replied of course. It was a foolish question. She start walking and thought is that a sign to back away? Lord Jackal going and said as a fellow leader, I respect your decision not to give anything up. He thought then let us begin. Come at me how you will. They start fighting. Amina put her hand on ears and thought while she looking them what the hell is going on. I know for sure it was that Jackal guy who woke me up. Lord Jackal said her there's a legend around here about a fairy that lives in a lamp. She thought but he doesn't seem to know who I am at all. Lord Jackal said her they say it can harm people, but that it sometimes grants wishes too. I guess it was just a fairy tale. Lord Jackal takes the lamp and thought how can he not know? Because he passed out? That's right, it looked like he'd been bleeding. Amina shocked and thought, wait. So that man isn't he injured? Amina thought, seeing Lord Jackard, commander of the Faz army. Hold on, a military commander? And an empire too? Faz was a hub right in the center of everything. The surrounding cities each acted as their own independent country. Has Faz become part of a much larger nation? They still fighting? Lord Jackard thought it was a feint. Amina asked him, Are I all right? Lord Jackard said her, it's fine. But you need to move further back. Amina asked, am I in your way? He said her, it's dangerous. Amina thought, I think he just got stabbed right where he was already wounded. Should I just use my power now and go back into the lamp? He said, them look at that. A gentleman even to your guide. Lord Jackard said, she's just a villager I happened across. He said him, your group has sworn that it will never harm civilians. He replied, I suggest you remember that promise. He said him that yes, I should remember our rules. Lord Jackard said him, but there's more to our rules than you know. She thought, we have also sworn to use any means necessary to achieve our goal. Amina thought that I just have to hurry and use my power. Amina looking the Lord Jackard and thought, I warned you. He shouted and said, ugh. Arga, Lord Jackard asked him, aren't you going to hit him? He thought, I captured him alive, so he'll have to face his crimes and stand trial according to our laws. He knows far too much to be killed outright. Lord Jackard said, Lord Jackard also said, I'm sorry I got you involved in all of this. You never answered me, by the way. Where do you live? As soon as we get out of here and find my men, I'll have them escort you home. Amina thought, how can I explain? I want to tell him the truth, but what they were talking about worries me. Amina also thought this land is sacred, no matter what the Ignora may say. There is a prophecy that the fairy will soon descend as our salvation, to ease the world's pain and suffering. Therefore humans must not displease it. If I tell the truth, I'll be dragged into all of that craziness. She also thought that I have to come up with an excuse. Lord Jackard took her in his hand. Lord Jackard said her while holding her, it seems I'm always apologizing. Amina asked, what happened? What was that just now? Lord Jackard said her, was he truly injured? I'm not really sure. It could have been an alchemical. Lord Jackard said, we need to get out before the cave collapses. Lord Jackard said her, I still don't know where you. Lord Jackard took a javelin and held the rope of the horse and said her, you'd better hurry home before something else shows up. Amina turned and asked him, why do you keep saying something might show up? He said her, why would you ask that? I thought you lived around here. He also said her, I suppose there's no telling if the other assassins will come or not. Amina thought, a fairy. Lord Jackard jumped and sat on the horse and gave her his hand. She picked his hand and thought, does he want to get out of here? He asked her, can you ride a horse? Amina replied, not really. I've never actually ridden before. He thought while riding a horse. I can't let you take the reins then. But you should still hold on so you don't fall. The horse ran very fast, and he asked her, surely that's not the fairy of the lamp? Amina said him, no way. He said her, I guess it does look too ordinary to be the source of a great legend. Amina thought, hush, she shouted and thought, why are we going up? Wasn't he trying to hide under the cliff? Amina asked, you aren't intending to fall here together, are you? He replied, wouldn't that kill us? Amina thought, you think? She looked at the fairies and thought, fairies. Creatures full of mysteries. They may seem like ordinary animals, but fairies are completely different in power, size, and aggressiveness. Amina was shocked and thought, what can he do against something even wizards couldn't handle? Amina said, why, fairies attacked them while Lord Jackard hit one and it fell down. Lord Jackard said her, that must have been quite the shock. Are you okay? Amina replied, could you tell? She turned and looked at him and thought, you're more shocking than the fairy. Amina asked him, that I'm fine. But are you really human? Lord Jackard replied her, I am, as you can see. Lord Jackard said her, you really should answer now. Where is your village? Amina thought, Faz, that's obvious. This whole land is the nation of Faz. I mean the city of Faz that's across the plain and down the river. Lord Jackard looked at her and said, you came all the way from there? How did you end up here? Were you in some kind of trouble? She replied, no, it's not that. Can I ask you something first? He asked. I've caused you a lot of trouble, so I guess that's the least I can do. Amina asked, why are you looking for the fairy of the lamp? Amina looked at her lamp. Lord Jackal said her looking at her lamp, well, mostly searching for it as a favor. I was asked to find the legendary fairy that can grant wishes. Amina said him, what will that person do with the lamp then? He said her, first, I imagine he will wish for his father's eyes to open. He thought and said her, so you came all the way out here for someone else's father? Sorry, that wasn't the best explanation. He's my father too. My older brother is the one who asked me to do this. He held her lamp in his hand and looked at her. He asked her, were you talking about Faz, the capital? The city that's down the Nanahit River from here? He also asked, you're from the city of Faz, but don't know who I am? Jackal, the son of Viceroy Al-Wab? Amina thought, so he's famous? Amina said, it's not so strange. The Faz I know is from the past. I've been sleeping in that lamp till now. Amina was sitting on the horse and asked him, you still haven't figured out who I am? Did you never have any suspicions at all? She said, I'm the fairy of the lamp you've been talking about. I'm no fairy though, I'm a human. Amina thought, which means I can grant your wishes. Not everything is possible though. She said, 3 wishes? Once I grant all 3, I can go back into the lamp. Lord Jackal said her, I'd like to go back as quickly as possible, so please hurry. That's my rule. He thought, what should I call you? Amina. Lord Jackal asked from her, Amina, are you sure you're human? Amina smiled and said, I really am. I'm pretty sure the rumors just got out of control. Amina thought that I'm definitely not a fairy. But I am I guess I can tell him. She said, wizard. Amina thought, I wonder what people think of wizards in this world. My pride might take a blow if there are a lot of us now. But more importantly, what if he turns hostile when he finds out? She looked at him and thought, I wouldn't have any other choice but to trap him in that cave. Lord Jackal said her, that story isn't an easy one to believe. Amina dropped from the horse and said him, are you calling me a liar? Lord Jackal said her, I didn't say that. But you claim to be a wizard, not even a fairy. Lord Jackal said her, that the Rafans call their tricks magic. Is that where you're really from? Amina shouted and in a loud voice said, I've never been to Rafa. I was born and raised in Faz. Amina thought that so was I. I've seen alchemy and prayer, but never magic. He doesn't know about magic at all? No way. I didn't expect this. Amina said him, whatever. Hurry up and make your wishes. That's what I'm here for. Lord Jackal replied, no, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. She asked, what? Why? Lord Jackal replied, it's not that I don't believe you. There wouldn't be any harm in that. Lord Jackal thought, but it was my brother who asked me to do this. He said her, so I will take you to him. That won't work. Amina said him, when I grant wishes, I'm using magic that works by altering causalities. I can only see the possible outcomes for someone connected to me by hurt. She said, besides, I don't want to grant someone else's wishes. Lord Jackal took her lamp and said, I see. He saw the gold coins and thought, one more question. How does a wish work exactly? It's not worth wishing for gold only to suddenly inherit a dying relative's wealth. Amina said, I'm not that depraved. But yes. If a wish is specific, then it makes my job easier. She asked and thought, are there other conditions? Wishes that can't be granted? Well, I can't change the minds or hearts of other people. I also can't kill anyone or bring back the dead. Killing is possible, I just don't want to. Amina said, and I suppose I don't really need to say that I can't turn back time. So be quick. I can send you back to your bed right now. Lord Jackal said her, no, I can't waste a third of the wishes like that. I need time to think. Amina turned and glanced and said, and besides, 2 men came on the horses. My men have arrived. They said, Commander. Something seemed strange, so we came as soon as we could. Did anything happen? Knight said him, is that dark spot an injury? This is why I insisted on coming with you. Lord Jackal replied, everything is fine. My injury isn't serious either. Knight said him, I apologize for worrying you. Dragging you into my family affairs was the last thing I wanted. Lord Jackal replied, the Viceroy's family affairs are public matters, not private. He said her when she looked surprised, especially in these trying times. Lord Jackal also asked her, but who is this young lady? She said, if you don't mind my asking. Lord Jackal said her actually, in the cave, Amina shouted and said I was kidnapped. I woke up in some cave with no idea where I was. I was so frightened that fairies might suddenly appear. Amina also said that, so I was hiding when this gentleman appeared and rescued me. I shouldn't make this more complicated. Lord Jackal said, there you have it. No need for further explanation. She's from a remote hidden village and doesn't know the way home. Amina was shocked and thought, seeing as I found her, it's best I take her into my care for now. Amina turned and shouted, that's not what we agreed. Commander, Lord Jackal said her, as you said, Foz is going through tough times now. What's the point of a rescue? Only to land right back into trouble trying to get home. Commander, Lord Jackal said him, Sally, give her something to cover herself with. Sally replied, yes, sir. Amina asked, what are you doing? Commander, Lord Jackal said, getting those wishes. She thought he did mention that his father can't open his eyes. I wonder how bad it is. Would I have to heal him directly? Commander, Lord Jackal looked her and said, it's not that I don't believe you. I'd appreciate it if you'd just follow along for now. Amina thought that I can't seem to push this guy around anymore. All right, fine. It shouldn't take long. Commander, Lord Jackal said her, what kind of monster abandons a lady in the middle of the desert dressed like this? Commander, Lord Jackal and Amina sat on the same horse and asked the knights how many men are on standby. Knight said, I can call for 2 teams right away. Do you want a convoy? Commander, Lord Jackal thought, no, I'll go back on my own. Cutting through the desert will take much less time. There's no need to hurry. It would be better to go through villages on our way back. Commander, Lord Jackal said, I shouldn't be away for too long. Way down there is a cave. Look for any sign of Kaduth. Inform me later if you find anything. Knight said, Kaduth? Is that who attacked you? Commander, Lord Jackal turned and said, them, that kind of thing can happen when you try something new. But I made it out fine. Commander, Lord Jackal said, them, I'm counting on you, Karam, Sally. They both replied, yes, sir. Amina was shocked and thought, I never thought I'd leave here. When she was with Dijibril and others, they were very happy, and Amina thought this used to be a mining area. I have a few memories of it. I remember talking about what magic to use for newly mined gems. But there's no trace of any of that now. Amina thought, furthermore, ahead will likely be no different. Everything I know is gone, and the world has become a completely different place. Let me see it with my own eyes, so I can shake off those memories. They reached near to the lamp. Amina looked and thought, is that a well? Lord Jackal turned, glared, and said to her, we made it right on time. It's dark, so we'll sleep here for the night. We'll leave before sunrise. Amina said to him plainly, the plain that I knew wasn't dry, dusty land like this. When did it start to change? Lord Jackal said to her, you talk like an old person. She thought, I am old. Lord Jackal said, the empire was founded 300 years ago. He thought by the time Foz was annexed, there already wasn't much grassland left. Amina shouted and said, 300 years? I'm not just old, I'm super old. The land continuing to dry up is certainly a problem. Amina said to him, how is that even possible? The river is right there. Lord Jackal said to her, when the drought started, the river also changed. Now we have dry seasons. Without snow melt from the northwest mountains, the river is nothing but a ditch. She looked at the water pot and started drinking. Lord Jackal asked her, all of that is common knowledge. Have you really been in that lamp? Amina replied while drinking, what? You said you believed me? I guess not. He said to her, believing is different from experiencing it firsthand. Even though your garments were so exotic, they're straight from the historical records. Historical records, Amina said to him, I find these clothes stranger. But I understand their use now. I had no idea it would get this hot and cold. Lord Jackal, in front of the fire, said to her, if you don't cover up in a desert like this, it's certain death. He also said to her, you should get some sleep. We have to travel even farther tomorrow. She tried to sleep and thought, worrying, how long has it been since I last ate, drank, or slept? Now that I'm out of the lamp, I'll probably need nourishment and sleep. Otherwise, I'd die. She ran and thought, I've had plenty of chances to end my life. When Pro Palace was under attack, When everyone I loved died, and I was left alone. When I first came out of the lamp, and right now, in this world where everything has changed. Amina thought, but I'm still alive. I'm still too scared to die, even at a time like this. Jibril thought, survive. Amina, she thought, I'm surviving, Jibril, just like you said. Amina said, this is the Nanahit River. We can follow it from here on out. She thought, it doesn't look like a river at all. It's like this during the dry season. Although, it's not the dry season yet. Lord Jackal said to her, now that I see it with my own eyes, it's much worse than usual this year. If the water level doesn't return to normal, Amina asked, what would happen? Lord Jackal said, a catastrophe. He thought, there are 700,000 people in the city of Faz alone. They all depend on the river. If the second largest city collapses, what will become of the empire? Amina said to him, make a wish then. Amina jumped down from the horse. Amina said, you have 3 wishes? 2 if you take out the one for your father. He asked, you mean I can wish for the river to be filled? Amina looked at him and said, do you think I can't? He thought, to make this river flow again. Amina said, I told you, I work magic by changing causalities. I can send you back home and fill this river. She thought, I think it's in a bad state too. He said to her, since we're connected by your blood, all you have to do is make the wish. She glanced at him. She thought and said while seeing her lamp, I wish for you to fill the Nanahit River. Make it rain, and have the river flow once more. Amina smiled and said, you got it. Lines of causality, she thought, rain over the entire desert. Amina looked at the sky and thought, done. Amina smiled and said, what do you think? The rain was happening, and he said, Anahita. Amina said to him, Uv, what are you talking? Ah, my power. Amina thought, Abu. It's running out. The servants thought at Faz Palace of the Viceroy, West Palace. It's raining so much. Oh my, just look outside. Tola, I said come here. I want to go out too. Can it really be raining? I can't believe how much rain there is. Jasmine thought while she enjoyed the rain. Head steward of the palace, Jasmine, thought, this is a miracle. Jasmine thought, Madam Jasmine. Maid Kisha became very happy and said, it looks like it might rain for a while. Maybe even all day. Maid Tola said, these small pots are already overflowing. The big pots are half full as well. Both the maids came in front of the madam, and Maid Tola said to her, I think we should empty the pots into the water storage, then put them back out again. Now, if only the commander would come back home, Maid Kisha said, Master Jackal? It is about time for him to come back. I wonder why he hasn't yet, Madam Jasmine thought and said, Kisha, how many times do I have to tell you? You must use his proper title now that he's been appointed to an official position. Maid Kisha said, I did it again. I'm so sorry. Maid Tola said, the pots are overflowing, Kisha. Hurry up and move them. All the servants shouted together. Madam Jasmine thought, sigh, okay, don't run. And to the middle of the desert, no less. And to the middle of the desert, no less. Madam Jasmine said, a favor for his older brother. I suppose it sounds good in theory. Madam Jasmine thought, he's been going on fairy hunts to the desert since he was young, so I shouldn't be too worried. But his return to the palace won't be so easy when it's raining like this. The commander has returned. Commander Jackal came back, and Maid Kisha said to him, welcome, Commander. We weren't expecting you so soon, Commander. The commander said to her, I'm back from a reconnaissance tour. Please take Kasha to the stable and ensure he's taken good care of. A servant took his horse. He went inside and said, are there any empty rooms? I'm sure one of Mother's rooms must be available. Madam Jasmine said, Commander. Madam Jasmine asked him, what's this talk of a room when you're wounded? Lord Jackal said to her, it's a long story, please prepare a room first. Maid Kisha said, even with such a request I don't think, huh? Madam Jasmine said, Master Jackal, who is that girl? Murmur Madam Jasmine, Maid Kisha, and Maid Tola looked. The commander said, there was a situation. Do you think you can get a room prepared? She said, fortunately, the wound wasn't poisoned, but you must still treat it promptly. Honestly, Commander, this isn't even the first time. Madam asked, do you understand? Commander Jackal said, I'll be more careful. She said, that's what you always say. If that's all, then I'll take my leave. She thought, mumble grumble. Amina thought, the fairy of the lamp, this miracle can't compare to the fairies that hurt people. But I think I understand a bit more now why the assassins worship her. Commander Jackal thought, Amina, that was her name. Captain Bisma said, it's horrible of him to call a meeting so soon after your return. And is it true that you've gone and injured yourself again? Captain of the Royal Guard, Bisma. Commander Jackal said to her, meetings are necessary for proper governance. And I was only injured because I let my guard down. It seems I still have a long way to go. Captain Bisma replied, I wonder if Madame Jasmine will think the same. Guards said, if you scar that pretty face of yours, though, the ladies will surely mourn. He thought, did anything happen while I was gone? Besides the rain, no. Captain Bisma said, it's a miracle the sword that stabbed you wasn't poisoned. Commander Jackal said, it might mean they can no longer afford poison. She thought, I guess the fairy they worship doesn't give them money. So the issue now is figuring out who paid them to kill you. Viceroy's Palace Council Chamber. Royal Vizier Nadir came into the council. Nadir said, Royal Vizier Nadir, the Honorable Saffron brings back with him some much-needed rain. Almost as if it were planned. Commander said, Nadir. Vizier Nadir thought, 1 year since the Viceroy fell ill. No one expects him to make a recovery. It is therefore between the two acting deputy viceroys, Jackal and Nadir, in the matter of who will become the next viceroy. Jackal and Nadir are stepbrothers. Jackal was born from Princess Muscha, the viceroy's wife, but Nadir was born from an unknown Raffin woman, illegitimate, and of mixed heritage. The relationship between the two has never been a good one. More precisely, it was Nadir that kept his distance from Jackal. Vizier Nadir said, so what you're saying is, that it was truly just a legend. Commander Jackal said, I found nothing like a fairy that grants wishes. I'm certain it was nothing but a baseless rumor. Commander thought, it's not exactly a lie. She really isn't a fairy. And I'm sure he'll take it the wrong way if I'm the only one who can make the wishes. I also can't say what kind of trouble will arise should her power be revealed to the world. And most of all, Amina thought, she doesn't want that. Besides, I don't want to grant someone else's wishes. So I shouldn't cause any more trouble than necessary. Vizier Nadir said, what a shame. I suppose that means it will be even longer before the Viceroy can open his eyes. The member said, I'm sure that everything will work out with you trying your hardest, Vizier. Vizier Nadir smiled and said, don't say that. I have my hands full just trying to keep up with everything. He said, no word from the Ministry of Alchemy? Obeyed, weren't you the one who first mentioned the Fairy of the Lamp? Another member said, I was, but it was simply one of many stories we recorded for our research purposes. It's too bad. It would have been incredible to confirm the existence of fairies that grant wishes. Captain Bisma asked, did that story happen to come from Kadutha's assassins? Commander Jackal said, Bisma. Vizier pointed at him and said, no, please go on with your question. Captain Bisma asked, I received a report that the commander was ambushed there by the assassin faction. The commander was fortunately able to defeat them and subdue their leader. I assume the commander is keeping silent about this in order not to appear boastful. But the assassins ambushed him at the exact time of his reconnaissance. It seems reasonable to suspect that they were the source of these rumors. It is my duty as captain of the Royal Guard to ask such questions and prevent future risks. Vizier Nadir thought, please don't take it the wrong way. Members said we're not sure where the story came from. We simply recorded the story as it was so widespread. Captain Bisma also said the Ministry of Alchemy sends out the military commander based on a baseless rumor? Commander Jackal said, Captain Bisma. Commander said I was going to report the incident once everything became clear. I don't think it's appropriate to start discussing who is at fault just yet. Captain said the Viceroy is my father as well. Commander said I would have gone to check even if I had known about the attack. Vizier Nadir thought, so let's not point any fingers over this. Vizier Nadir smiles and said, I hope you all understand my brothers and my feelings. It feels like the alchemists are trying to steer us in the wrong direction. Captain Bismuth said, rumor has it that the Royal Guard's budget is being cut, while the Ministry of Alchemy budget continues to grow. I can't even imagine what incredible research they must be doing. Commander Jackal said Faz is the home of alchemy. It's right that we be generous to them. Captain Bisma said they're going to suck the royal guard dry at this rate. Bisma also said in glance, in any case, I need to dig up more information about the assassins. Otherwise, they'll end up worming their way into the palace. She thought from what Kudus said, it doesn't matter how many people are behind the faction. He wasn't wrong. Captain said are you trying to ignore the obvious suspect? People were thought this is similar to when the viceroy was attacked. Though not many would admit it. They said the bastard is bent on taking the viceroy's position. Commander said Nadir is also my father's child. I can't suspect him solely on rumor, he thought, but you must see how he benefits the most from all this. He sent you to the land of fairies chasing an obviously false rumor. Captain removed her cap and said it's infuriating that you went through all that, and for no reason. Oh right, but it wasn't a complete waste. She said I can't believe our commander has brought home a girl. She thought I ordered that it be kept secret. Don't worry. It didn't get out of the West Palace. Captain Bisma asked, but nothing gets past me. Isn't that why you appointed me captain of the guard? Captain loudly said it's all the West Palace maids are talking about. They say you saved her from a kidnapper? I hear she's quite the cutie too. Captain said I ran into her during my mission. Madame Jasmine came also. Madame whispered in his ears and said she's awake. Commander said just a short while ago. Captain said you should get going. I'll see you tomorrow, sir. She also asked him, but what were you going to say just now? Also, what? Commander said I was going to say she reminds me of Anahita. Captain Bisma shouted and said, oh, Anahita. She thought, huh? Anahita? Amina thought, isn't Anahita the goddess from the legend of the Nanhit River? And he says the girl reminds him of Anahita? Amina became ready, and she thought a short while ago. Maid Kisha said when she was making her hair this place? It's the Viceroy's palace. Maid Kisha laughing and said I thought that much would be obvious. I guess you really are from a remote village. But I'm sure things will only get better for you from now on. Maid wearing her a beautiful dress and said you were saved by a great man, one who even gifted you these clothes. Be sure to thank him again later. She thought they said their names were Kisha and Tola. Maid Kisha said, oh, and I almost forgot. Maid Tola said the commander will be here shortly, so we should be going now. Already? Can't we stay just a little longer? No, she thought I wanted to talk a little more. She became ready and sat on the sofa. Madame Jasmine said I'll take my leave now. Commander Jackal said I heard you'd woken up. Amina asked you really do look like a rich boy now. So I guess you really are one, huh? Commander Jackal said speak for yourself. With those clothes, you look like you belong here. Amina said I don't even look like myself. Is it really okay for me to wear these? She thought don't worry about that. They're second-hand, so they're hardly precious. Did these belong to someone else? Commander Jackal said they were my late mother's. The only women's clothes in the West Palace were either those or the maid's. Amina asked him, so what are you going to do now? Commander Jackal said I'm going to make my second wish. I'm sure you must still be tired, but could you come with me? There's no time to lose. Amina bent in front of him and said I feel fine now after that sleep. The sooner we get this done, the better. Amina thought I'm sure of it now. This world has nothing for me. I want to return to the lamp as soon as possible. My father is currently in the Central Palace. I brought you here so that you can judge for yourself. Amina said when Commander hid her in his dress she thanked. Commander took the light lamp and they went. He said this is the Central Palace. She thought Pro Palace. Palace of the Viceroy's Central Palace. Commander asked her what's the matter? Amina said when was this palace built? It wasn't built by the Empire, was it? She said there's no official record, so we can't be sure. But it said that it was built by a group that was occupying this area. She also said due to its splendor, it's been used as the Viceroy's palace since the founding of the Empire. But we mainly use the West and East palaces for everyday activities. This really is Pro Palace. Amina smiled and thought it's still here. Commander said her it can't be. He thought Lord Jackard. There's no need to be so formal. Amina happily said him Jackard then. I'll tell you a secret. About how to use this palace. Amina said you are full of surprises. Amina looked at him. She said when the upstairs I told you I'm a wizard, didn't I? This wouldn't have been a surprise in the past. He thought, how long do these lights last? With the amount of power I put in, about half an hour or so. With an infinite amount of power, they would last until either the formula was broken or the gems lost their effectiveness as a medium. She said him, so you sleeping in the lamp was, that's right. The lamp's formula held my magic and my soul, but I needed a medium in order to gain a body. Amina also said this time it seems the medium was your relation. Commander and Amina both going when Commander takes a lamp. Amina said 3 wishes. Using my power 3 times seems to be the limit. The magic used to maintain this body will temporarily run out. Amina touched the wall and thought, for some reason, I feel sad. Commander Jackard asked, would it be possible to summon you back? Amina said, I'm not sure. The lamp has to reprocess my body's information while I sleep. It will take some time for my magic to recover too. Commander opened the lock and he said it could be a few months or a few years for all I know. Commander said, in any case, I still have only the 3 wishes. He thought, you're going to make the second wish here though, right? If I can. Palace of the Viceroy, northern top floor, altar of the star. Amina thought it looks almost the same here too. Amina worried and thought the wall that Gibro broke. She thought Viceroy Al-Wahb defeating Leviathan. That is a stone called the fairy egg. The name comes from its shape. No, that's not a fairy egg. That's the star gifted by the heavens, the source of all magical power. Amina shocked and thought, now that there's no magic in this era, that star is just a decorative fairy egg. She thought, and this person here is Viceroy Al-Wahb. My father. Viceroy Al-Wahb thought he was ambushed a year ago during an expedition. He's been enshrined in here ever since. Commander Jackard said her, no one has access to this place. Besides me and my brother, only his doctor is allowed in. Amina thought he looks like he's already dead. Viceroy Al-Wahb slept and thought his heart is definitely still beating, but he can't open his eyes. I'm not sure if even you can revive him. Amina thought, I won't know unless I try. Make a wish. Commander took her lamp again and said, help my father open his eyes, so that he may return to his old way of life again. Amina sighed and thought, all right. Now I just need to find the cause of his illness, she thought. Hold on. She thought, how is this possible? His body's information is completely gone. His heart should have stopped long ago. Has he truly lasted an entire year like this? Amina thought and said, this is horrible, and too late. Amina surprised and said, his heart is beating, but that's all. With his brain dead, his body's information is long gone. She also said that he can't be revived with my power. She asked, was he a good father? She thought he was more like a superior than a father. He was once a legendary janissary who worked his way up to viceroy. But still, he wasn't a bad person. I see, Commander Jackard said. I believe that everything would go back to normal if father woke up. Faz is divided right now on who will be the next viceroy. The candidates are my stepbrother and me. Commander Jackard said, to be honest, I don't want to be the viceroy. But giving up the position still won't solve anything. I thought that if things just went back to normal, all of our problems would be solved. I thought with your miracles it might be possible. Commander Jackard also said that maybe this is my punishment for hoping it would be that easy. Commander Jackard gave her a lamp and said, even though you couldn't grant my second wish, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've made a tremendous difference just by giving Faz water. Amina closed her eyes and said, you still have 2 wishes left, so hurry up. Commander said, this is a bit awkward. I was actually planning on thinking about the last wish once the second had been granted. I don't have anything I want to wish for at the moment. Amina shouted, holding the lamp, and said, what? Commander Jackard looked at her and said, so I'd like to ask for your understanding. Could you please stay here just until I decide on what to wish? Amina was sleeping on the bed and thought. Commander Jackard said, I'm not asking you to decide right now. And you're free to go back at any time. But if we are faced with another disaster someday, I might need your help again. This might be asking too much, but I truly would like for you to stay. Amina said him that I could go back, of course. I would only need to make it rain 2 more times. Amina saw the lamp and said, but I can't believe he doesn't have a wish. What kind of person has nothing to wish for? She expressed her feelings and thought I ended up like this trying to chase my own wish in the first place, so I decided to use this power only to grant the wishes of others. Amina thought, and now I'm told to decide for myself. What should I do? Amina looked and said annoying till the very end. He asked her who's annoying? Amina rose and looked at the lamp with surprised eyes. Maid Kisha arrived with breakfast dishes, and she looked at her. Maid Kisha placed the dish on the table and asked her, it's not me, is it? But more importantly, he's Princess Mush's son. Maid Kisha said her in the past, not just anyone could be a maid in the palace of the viceroy. Can you believe people had to pay 20 silver coins to get a position here in the palace? Princess Musha made it so that these jobs would go first to people in need. Amina asked her, is that how you came here, Kisha? Maid Kisha smiled and replied, yes. I was widowed early on, but I was lucky to have had a child. Amina, taking the spoon and having breakfast, said and thought, I think Tola has several younger siblings to care for as well. Most of the maids in the West Palace are like that. She's still so young, so the princess is like a savior to us, as well as Master Jackal. The East Palace has gone back to the old way, but I can still work here in the West Palace because Master Jackal has continued her policy. Maid Kisha again laughed loudly and said, so all of the East Palace maids are from wealthy families. Oh, speaking of, Amina ate beans and smiled. Maid Kisha, shocked, said, where are my manners? I've just been prattling on. Amina took the glass and said, not at all. I'm happy to learn more about this place. Could I have more tea? She thought I wasn't sure if you liked coffee, so I've just been bringing you rose tea. She poured the juice into the glass, and Amina looked and said, this is brewed from roses? Roses grow in this climate? Maid Kisha smiled and said her while she took the water pot, yes, there's a greenhouse in the garden. Would you like to go see? You haven't been outside since you arrived. Amina went outside. Amina thought, according to Kisha, the empire is divided into 7 states. Among those, the state of Faz is the central city. A viceroy is put in charge of governing each state. Viceroy Al-Wab was from Janissary, which is under direct control of the Sultan. He was a warrior who worked his way up by hunting fairies. His wife, Princess Musha, though from a collateral line of the imperial family, was the granddaughter of a former sultan. Some considered her noble blood wasted in marrying a viceroy. So she was as politically active as the viceroy himself during her lifetime. Jackal is her only child. The purple sash he wears is proof of his royal blood. His exploits subduing bandits and fairies from a young age earned him another name, Saffron. Amina also thought that so very fancy. Now I understand why he doesn't have any wishes. He already has everything. But he said, Saffron said her that I believe that everything would go back to normal if father woke up. To be honest, I don't want to be the viceroy. I thought that if things just went back to normal, all of our problems would be solved. Amina went out and said, well, that's none of my business. She thought, is this the greenhouse? It's all made of glass. She picked the curtains and said, ugh, why won't this door open? She saw flowers and became happy and said, wow, the temperature is different here. It almost seems like magic. How did they do it? Amina also said that if I were to design this, I would use a heat detection formula for the walls, with beryl and brown agate as mediums. Then there could be some moisture absorbed from the outside. Wazir Nadir asked, what are you staring at? Wazir Nadir smiled. Amina looked at him and asked, who are you? Wazir Nadir smiled and said, ha, that's what I should be asking. Wazir Nadir asked her, are you an alchemist? Which branch? An apothecary? A perfumer? Amina replied, I'm neither. Amina looked at her feet and said, you're crushing the roses. Why worry over some flowers? Nadir closed her and said, when there's a stranger wandering around the viceroy's palace. Amina aggressively looked at him. Wazir Nadir smiled and said, her just kidding. He said they said my brother was hiding a girl in the West Palace. That must be you. Amina replied, then you are. Vizier Nadir asked her, we have different mothers, but yes, I'm his older brother. My name is Nadir, but what should I call you? She said, Amina. He touched her face and said her, that's a pretty name. And with a face to match it. Amina picked his hand and shouted and became angry and said, I didn't say you could touch me. Nadir thought, she seems I've offended you. But when the girl my dull brother was hiding turned out to be more beautiful than I could imagine, I just couldn't help myself. Do you always brush things off like that? Vizier Nadir said her, and do you always have a quick retort on hand like that? Fine then, I was only passing by, so let's just get our questions out of the way and move on. Amina said him, there's nothing I want to ask you. Vizier Nadir thought, you've been looking around. Don't you want to know if you can take some flowers with you? That's not what I was thinking at all. I was trying to figure out how this place was designed. Vizier Nadir said her, then you've found the right person. She asked, what do you mean? He said, this place is managed by the Ministry of Alchemy, which is under the office of the Vizier. It means this greenhouse was built with alchemy. Amina had a question, alchemy? Vizier Nadir said, You've never heard of alchemy? Vizier Nadir further said her, we'll get to that matter later. When he was holding a lighted bulb in his hand, she thought, simply put, alchemy is a method of turning sand into gold. In fact, it's a collection of methods used to create things we need by combining different ingredients and elements around us. Amina was surprised and thought, alchemy. So magic has been forgotten completely, but alchemy is big enough to have its own ministry? Could it be that alchemy is another name for magic? Are there really that many people born with the ability to use alchemy? Vizier Nadir said her, born? You peasants are truly something. Anyone with a brain and enough money for lessons can get an alchemist's license. Amina put her hand on her chin and thought, but if a wizard is born with magic, that means they can't be wizards. And what's this prayer I've heard about? My brother's mother missed the roses from her home in the capital. I don't know all of the details, but they probably add something to the soil. The seeds are likely modified as well. Amina asked him, you mean that's allowed in alchemy? Isn't that the same as using living things as mediums? But that's prohibited in magic. Vizier Nadir glared and smiled, saying, well. Amina looked at his face and asked, what do you want to know about me? He asked her, there's a lot that I want to know. Is it true that my brother saved you from being kidnapped? Amina replied, yes, I was left stranded in an unfamiliar place. Nadir asked her, is it also true that you are from a hidden village? Amina said, yes, so I don't know much about the world. And it's why I didn't know about alchemy. She thought, what a pity. How long are you planning on staying here? That, I don't know yet. Vizier Nadir picked a flower and said, why is that? If my brother brought you all the way here, wasn't the plan for you to stay a while? Nadir took a rose flower in his hand and said, he did ask me to, but I haven't made my decision yet. Is that so? Well then, Vizier Nadir smiled and said, you must possess some sort of power as well. Amina was shocked and glanced. Amina looked at her lamp and shouted. She thought, does he know who I am? He was the one who originally wanted the fairy of the lamp. He isn't going to force me to grant his wishes, is he? I can't let him see me panicking. What do I do? What should I say? A girl asked him, Nadir, are you there? Amina looked at her, strange. The girl had a white dress and flowers on her forehead. She said to him, I've been looking for you. What are you doing in the West Palace? Nadir replied, I had a sudden urge to see the roses. They may have been put here by someone I disliked, but they can still prove useful. Amina stared at her and thought, wow, she's so pretty. Nadir said her, until next time then. Amina shouted and said him, I told you not to touch me. Nadir set a rose in her forehead flowers, and they were gone. Amina said, I can't believe he's Jackar's brother. The next day, Commander Jackard and Amina walked together, and he asked her, you ran into Nadir? Did anything happen? Amina said him, he just told me about alchemy in the greenhouse. She was shocked and said, oh, I saw a really pretty woman too. She had a wreath in her hair. Commander Jackard looked at her and asked, you mean she came to the West Palace too? Amina also looked at his face and said, yes. She came to find your brother. She smiled and asked, they seemed very close. Oh, is she your sister-in-law? Commander Jackal replied, not at all. Jackal said her, Primavera is my father's healer that I mentioned. Amina thought, she was the healer? She must be an incredible apothecary to have kept your father's heart beating for an entire year. Jackal said, she's not an apothecary, she's a priest. She heals people with a mysterious power from God. Amina also thought, she's an Enochian refugee from across the southern sea. Nadir showed up with her one day. You must possess some sort of power as well. So that's what he meant. When Amina was sitting on the sofa in front of the table, Commander Jackal came and placed a paper. Commander Jackal asked her, you've been here for a few days now, but is there anything I can do to make your stay more pleasant? Amina was surprised and said him, if I have to give an answer, I would say that it's hard for me to pass so much time with nothing to do. Jackal asked her, have you made up your mind then? She said, sorry, I didn't know it would be this hard for me to make a decision. Jackal said her, I wasn't blaming you. He asked, is there a reason for your indecision? Amina shouted and thought, you're the reason. I just can't believe someone would throw away the chance to have their wishes granted. She said, because Pearl Palace is here. She thought, you mean the Central Palace? Yes. It was called Pearl Palace back then. It holds a lot of memories for me. I always meant to return to the lamp, but it's complicated now. Commander Jackal said, I see. Could I ask how exactly you ended up like this? Amina was in front of her lamp and thought, it started like any other day, but then the ordinary people attacked the wizards. Everyone died but me. It was another wizard that helped me escape. Amina said, so I tried to go back in time using magic, but I failed, and now here I am. The end. Commander Jackal said, there isn't much about Faz in the history records of the Empire's founding. She thought, since it was a bloodless victory. Amina looked at him and said, you mean Faz was surrendered without a fight? Amina glanced at him and thought, the surrounding lands had all been conquered, but Faz was the only one that didn't resist. They say there was no ruling power in Faz at that time, and only the palace remained. She was shocked and thought, then that means, but why did they go that far? They killed all the wizards, how could they? Commander Jackal asked her, if you're still undecided, could I offer my own opinions? He looked and said her, you said you don't want to get involved in this world. But the water that the people of Faz are drinking now comes from the rain you brought. She replied, all I did was grant your wish. Jackal said her, when her hand was on the table, a wish that you suggested. And if you truly didn't want to get involved, you wouldn't have ever thought to grant the wishes of others in the first place. Jackal put his hand on the table and said her, I apologize if I was being presumptuous. I will try to make your stay here comfortable, whatever your decision. Identification papers? Jackal said her, yes. You see, if it's worry over your position that makes you hesitate, I can take care of that. I am the military commander, after all. Jackal also said her, I can create a suitable position for you, then the servants will have fewer questions too. Amina asked him, why would you do that for me? Commander Jackal said her, that I asked for this favor, so I have to take responsibility. Then, Amina became upset and said then, she thought I want to decide after seeing what's outside the palace. Amina turned, glanced, and thought 300 years ago, Faz. Amina, said Jibril. Jibril asked her, I'm about to go outside the palace. Would you like to join me? I'm going to test the city walls. Amina said, you've been going out a lot these days. I can't see why when the people out there don't even understand magic. Jibril said, true, but they do produce the jewel mediums we use for magic. She said, you hardly ever leave the palace, so, no thanks. I'm close to finishing the formula that the chairwoman assigned me. Amina said, you should just go by your, she thought, Jibril? Amina shouted and said, gasp. She woke up and thought just a dream. Maid Tola was getting her ready. Amina became ready and said, it's so long. Maid Tola said, it's a bit old-fashioned, but there's not much we can do since it belonged to Princess Muscha. Amina said, I know it may be uncomfortable, but the commander said he will accompany you. Amina thought that I could get to the city center on my own. But he said there's a place he wants to show me. What could it be? Amina looked at him and asked, why are there so many people? Jackal said, Faz is a vitally important passage for merchants. considering half of the Empire's territory is desert. Not to mention that the people are excited to have avoided a great drought this year. People and the maids laughed and thought this is the city you saved. Amina glanced and said I wasn't trying to save it. Jackal said it doesn't change the fact that you did. Jackal and Amina entered the court, and she thought so. The market is inside of a building. Jackal said be careful not to get separated from me. She thought what? I'm not a child. Amina said why don't you hold my hand or take my arm if you're really that worried. He looked at her and asked would that be all right? Amina replied angrily as you wish. He held her hand and thought I'll take that as a yes. Amina looked surprised and thought oh. I had forgotten about that time I grabbed his hand without even thinking. And he even carried me, see episode 5. He doesn't even seem to care. Some diamond rings and earrings sparkled. Commander Jackal tried to save her. Jackal said I knew it was too dangerous to leave you alone. Amina said well then, you should hold on tighter. They held hands together. Amina was sitting on the bed, and a servant brought a meal for her. She started eating and asked how does it taste? Not bad. But why are there only sweets? She also said most of the maids like this kind of food. Amina looked at him and asked you don't talk to many women besides your maids, do you? Jackal replied I can't imagine why you think that, but it's not the case. Amina looked and asked really? Then what kind of women have you met? Well, you've already met Sally. Commander Jackal looked at her and said half of the top positions in the palace are filled by women, including the captain of the royal guard. She thought wow, so sheltered, that doesn't match his face at all. Though I'm not really one to talk. Jibril smiled and thought Amina's male friends, Jibril, the end. She thought so. I noticed that the market is full of fancy goods. Is that because Faz is the second biggest city? He said it's because this plaza is close to the palace. It's different if you go further out. When she was finished, she asked then is it the outskirts where they sell meat and produce? Jackal replied yes, but as I was saying someone shouted and said it's a ferry. They both turned and looked. He shouted in the new town over the bridge. It's in the camp where those Enochians live. Did he say a ferry was in the city? If it was spotted in Sector 58, it won't make it this far. Jackal said the security forces will take care of it before that. It's not like that part of the city will be missed anyway. Amina asked are you going there? Jackal replied I'm sorry, but could you wait here? I need to see for myself. She shouted and said won't the security forces handle it? He said I'm the one responsible for giving them their orders. She looked angry and said then I'll go with you. You still have 2 more wishes. Amina looked at someone and said there's someone there. She shouted and said a ferry. Commander Jackal took her on the horse and said take Kasha somewhere else. Horses are scared of land ferries. Amina shouted and thought where is everyone? Aren't the security forces here yet? She grabbed her hand and said over here. A girl said you're that girl from the West Palace? Amina looked at her and asked Primavera. Amina ran and thought I don't have time for this. She said please look after the horse. Jackal is out there fighting all on his own. Primavera asked Jackal. The commander himself is here? Primavera grabbed her hand again and said don't go. There is nothing you can do. You'll only get in his way. Amina turned and said you don't know anything about me to say something like that. Primavera said you think fairies are a joke? They're dangerous. She dropped her hand and thought that's why I'm going. You stay hidden. Primavera went outside and said stay in here, everyone. Don't come out for any reason. I'll check the situation outside. Commander Jackal and the fairy were fighting. Primavera and Amina hid behind the cart, and Primavera said he's actually holding his own. Amina thought what is he waiting for? The fairy shouted last time he killed a fairy with a single shot. Amina thought Jackal shouted and thought it's because of that man behind him. Amina looked and thought this isn't good. What should I? Jackal used his sword while fighting with the fairy. Jackal said its tail is moving. A cart? He turned and glanced and thought Amina? Amina used her gadget and thought the medium is small, but it should be fine. Even with a small medium, an elaborate formula can. She removed the lights from her hand and thought reach maximum efficiency. Even then, the fairy had died. Amina said, I'm sorry I had to use your mother's things that way. Commander looked and said, you really are full of surprises. Primavera asked, how did you? Amina said, thank you for helping with the cart. Save the thanks. But you, what are? Amina thought that I'm a wizard. From Rafa. Amina said, no, I use Fauza's long-lost magic. She thought this is the refugee town for Enochians that came from across the southern sea. Primavera usually stays in the Viceroy's palace, but she pays this town the occasional visit. Primavera sat and said, I'll start the prayer now. Amina looked at her and thought, so this is their prayer? They all laughed and thought I knew the priest could do it. The star is watching over us. Amina asked, Star? Commander Jackal said, it's an Enochian custom. They call their god the star. Primavera said, it's from a very old legend about God descending to the earth in the form of a star. Come here, please, Commander. I know we're not on the best of terms, but your arm was injured saving him. Enochians don't overlook someone who saved a compatriot's life. Commander Jackal said the security forces never came. Primavera replied, they do not come here because we are not imperial citizens. That's not something someone of your stature would know. Amina thought his injury was healed instantly. Primavera said, give me your hand. Amina also thought and was surprised, wait, this feeling, magic infusion? She shouted and thought she skipped the formula and is drawing out life force by infusing magic directly into my body. I had no idea magic could be used this way. The method is very different, but what they call prayer is most certainly magic. Amina was sitting in front of her and said, that legend about the descending star, I heard it when I was young. Primavera asked, really? Is there a similar legend outside Enochia? Primavera thought, I'm sure she's a wizard like me. Primavera said, I hope I can look into your magic more closely someday. Commander Jackal said, I wanted to show you this place regardless of your decision. Amina was behind him and said, is this Mr. Commander's secret tourist spot or something? Commander Jackal replied, you'll find out soon enough. The soldiers saluted him as they came. Amina said, hold on. Amina went upstairs and shouted, how many more stairs do we have to climb? Jackal turned and said, that was inconsiderate of me. Do you need to take a break? Here in the middle of the staircase? Commander said, if you can't climb anymore, I could carry you. She said, what? Amina looked and said, how can you say that with a straight face? Jackal thought, would it be so hard to treat me more like a woman, and not just the fairy of the lamp? Jackal said, I was just... She replied, I understand it might just be your personality, but we've both had our coming-of-age ceremonies. Amina was at the window and asked, huh? Wait. She looked as the sun rose and thought, grass. They're saying the rain sprouted seeds that were buried in the sand. It won't last forever though. Amina thought, it can't be. It looks just like my time. As if we rewound time. Commander Jackal said, I wanted to show you this even if you decided to go back. She became sad and thought, I can't cry here. How embarrassing, she said, but this isn't really the time I belong to. She thought, yes, this is the future for you. I have no right to keep you from turning your back on this place. Yet I still asked you to stay. Have you made your decision? When Commander Jackal neared her, she said, can I ask you something first? Is there truly nothing that you want for yourself? Instead of something for someone else? He said, there is. But Wazir Nadir thought, your power can't revive my father or even change my brother's mind. And from what I've seen, I don't think you could turn back time to when my father was healthy. So there's no wish you can grant me for now. Jackal glanced at him and said, when we first met, I thought magic was just something out of a fairy tale. But you have truly changed this desert with that magic. I know all of that might not mean very much to you, but she thought your magic can really help the people who need it. That's why I asked you to stay. Can I really stay in this world? Can I have a life here? I should have already disappeared from this world, Jibril thought, and said, everyone I love is gone. How can I go on alone? Survive, Amina! Amina looked outside and still thought, but I remembered Jibril said something else then too, go see the wider world. All the maids and other people laughed. They were looking outside. She said, Jackal. Amina took her lamp and said, I'll give you back the lamp. She gave it to him and said, but be sure to give me identification papers soon. I was really in a bind without them. He took a piece of cloth and thought I'd give this to you if you ever needed a sash. She said it's turquoise? He asked you don't like it? She checked the cloth and said no, I do like it. Vazir Nadir said Primavera. Nadir also said you've been out all day today. Primavera said that artificial fairy, it was you, wasn't it? Primavera asked why did you release it in the new town? You knew I'd be there. Vazir Nadir smiled and said I didn't have a choice. I needed to find out how artificial fairies react to humans, and that's the only place where security forces don't go. Besides, thanks to you, only one person ended up getting injured. Primavera said that man would have died if not for your brother. Vazir Nadir closed in and asked what? Are your feelings hurt? Primavera thought he's always like this. She thought it doesn't matter, I've already become his accomplice. The star in the northern top floor, I'd do anything to get my hands on that. She thought that Amina's new title as advisor to the royal guard. Now she dresses like a new palace worker. It felt strange wearing clothes left behind by someone else. Her duty as advisor is interpreting the ancient magic embedded in the central palace. And thus, Amina is being guided by the captain of the royal guard. The central palace is currently used for receptions, meetings, and at times for administrative work. Captain Bisma came and thought the reception room we just passed is usually for the Sultan's imperial messengers. That's because the viceroy is technically under the Sultan's authority, though that authority is not quite what it used to be. Here we have the council chamber. Having trouble? Amina said you walk so fast, Captain Bisma. Captain Bisma said oh shoot. My apologies. And there's no need to speak so formally to me. You can drop the title. Amina looked at her and said huh? But if I'm an advisor to the royal guard, doesn't that make you my superior? Following the organizational structure, yes. But advisor is not technically a rank. It can also be seen as inappropriate if you address me formally while speaking so casually to the commander. She thought and said that makes sense. Then slow down, Bisma. Captain Bisma became happy and said that was mighty quick. I like it. Amina said you're really tall, by the way. I think you're the tallest person I've ever seen. Captain Bisma said I can serve in the royal guard because of my height. Appearances are important in a position like this. Amina said there are people put off by my height though, of course. I was surprised by it, but being put off. Captain Bisma said some even joked about me having fairies as ancestors, but the commander saw my potential and gave me this job. She thought this is the council chamber. The commander's seat is over there, on the left. The seat in the middle belongs to the viceroy, and on the right is the royal vizier's. He's the commander's half-brother, Amina said while looking. I already met Nadir. It seemed like he had already heard about me. Bisma said a step ahead, as always. Captain Bisma also said if you are called to attend a meeting, this seat in the back will be yours. Amina asked will there ever be an occasion for me to be called? Bisma said if you have something to report to the council. Captain Bisma said and go on, and considering this magic you use is unknown to everyone, she said so. Captain Bisma glanced at her and asked can you prove it right here and now? That there's ancient magic embedded in this palace?